We have a massive Islanders update as the search for the next general manager of the franchise has been narrowed down to 2 candidates. And this is going to change everything, especially when it comes to how the Islanders are going to structure their front office, as we're going to break down on this episode of Islanders Digest. But before we do that, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We've noticed that 80.7% of you have not subscribed to the channel. If you're an Islander fan and you want more Islanders content just like this, what are you waiting for? It's free. Now let's get right into talking about this GM situation. And honestly, it's really felt like this Islanders GM search has been like a game show where we started with so many candidates, and each week we get one candidate who's written off the list. It's really taking longer than you typically would expect it to take. I will say it's probably better that they are taking their time with this decision than just rushing with the first candidate that they think is good enough. And we now seem to have an update that they are narrowing down on candidates. Frank Cervelli, who is very reputable, and the fact that he is confirming this shows that it is the case. I know there's been a lot of questions on what is true and what's not true when it comes to New York Islanders GM search, because there's been a lot of leaks, a lot of rumors. It's been messy, especially for Islanders standards, considering that Lou Lamoriello is now gone. He was really the one who kind of kept the Islanders tight-lipped. Now everything's out in the open, but Frank Cervelli is reporting, so it's pretty much official that Marc Bergevin has gotten a second interview with the Islanders for their GM vacancy. And as we're going to talk about in a little bit, this GM wording is very key, because in the beginning of this search, it really seemed like the Islanders were going to hire one person for both the GM and president role. We know now that that person was almost 100% Ken Holland or Jeff Gordon. Ken Holland wasn't interested, and the Islanders didn't have a chance to interview Jeff Gordon as he is with the Montreal Canadiens. And it seems now that they've taken a step back from that GM and president role and are now looking for a GM and president. We're going to talk about at the end of this video who that president is almost definitely going to be. We might hear some other names, but at this point I really think there is only one name who is going to be that president, unless one of these other names who is between the GM and president role ends up getting both. I really think it's going to be a GM and president situation. For now, I really want to focus though on Marc Bergevin has gotten a second interview, and this is interesting news. Personally, Marc Bergevin was not my first choice, although I do see him as a safer choice when it comes to all the options out there. I think he's definitely better than Ken Holland. Even a guy like Rob Blake, who I do want to note has never really gotten involved with the Islanders talks. He got let go of by the Los Angeles Kings, and I was under the assumption, considering he's already been a GM and he had a pretty good track record with the Kings, that he would be considered. Maybe he ends up being involved in this present situation, but in terms of the GM search, we've really had no word on Rob Blake at all. Maybe he's not interested in being GM. That's just speculation here. But what we do know is there are now 2 candidates for the Islanders GM position who have been confirmed, and that is Marc Bergevin, and from Stefan Rosner, we have Mathew Darche, which is going to excite a lot of Islander fans. Now, what this means with Stefan Rosner tweeting that he's gotten confirmation that Mathew Darche has gotten a second interview, Stefan Rosner also reported that Kekalainen got in the first interview. It seems between these 2 tweets that Kekalainen is no longer in consideration for the GM position, which for me is a bit of a shame. Kekalainen, as I've said in a couple videos, was actually my favorite choice to be the GM of the New York Islanders. I know a lot of people disagreed with that, but it was just something I thought would work really well. Clearly, the Islanders organization went in a different direction, and frankly, I have no issue with that. As we all know, we're not involved in this interviewing process. We're not seeing how these candidates are interviewing and what their plan is for the New York Islanders. And as I've said multiple times, until this GM shows what type of GM they're going to be with the Islanders over the first year or 2, I think we cannot judge just based on a name. A guy like Bergevin can make changes to what he's done in Montreal, and Darche, even though he's had a great track record with the Lightning, as we're going to touch on in a little bit, he's still unproven, so you really have to give some time before we really celebrate one of these names. Still, Kekalainen was a name I like. It seems like he's no longer under consideration. Doesn't mean he can't be an advisor or in some sort of capacity. I still think he is a good hockey mind, and that does provide some value. But of these 2 candidates, the real big thing that we have to focus on is Stefan Rosner and Frank Cervelli are both emphasizing that this is for the GM position, not president, as it seems more and more likely that the Islanders are going to hire a president and a GM separately. And the first question I really have is, if the Islanders are planning to hire a president, it's kind of strange that they're still going ahead having a second round of interviews for the GM, because would you not want the president to be a part of that? Sure, you can record the interviews, show the president some of the footage. The president can then come in and have a final interview with each candidate, but it seems a little strange that they're still moving forward with this GM hunts while they're still looking for a president. Maybe this is just a case where they're not sure if they're going to bring in a president. For now, they're just having the GM conversations, and if the president they want is not available, then maybe they will have that interview where they kind of interview them to be both the president and GM. One thing I also will note, in a previous video, I mentioned that potentially the Islanders could have Bergevin and Darche as a potential pair, with Bergevin and as president and Darche as a GM. At this point, it does not seem like that is likely, especially considering they are both interviewing for the position of GM. I think it actually is a little surprising that Bergevin has not gotten an interview for the position of president, but this is the information we have at this point. And looking at these two candidates, as I said, I think they are both good choices. I would honestly prefer Darche, and I will say the fact that Darche is still being considered this late into the conversation is showing how good of a candidate he really is, beating out other GMs like Jarmo Kekalainen. I mean, Peter Chiarelli hasn't even gotten serious consideration, and the fact that Darche is one of the two last men standing with Bergevin is really just a testament to how ready he is for the position. And frankly, I'm really hoping that Darche beats out Bergevin. Again, Bergevin has the experience, but Darche is a younger hockey mind, somebody who has not yet messed up at the NHL level. He's somebody who deserves a chance, and frankly, I hope the Islanders kind of learn from kind of these examples of GM retreads and go in the new direction and hire Darche. Still, if they do bring in Bergevin, it would not be the worst decision. I mean, he made a lot of good moves with the Montreal Canadiens. He made some mistakes, but more importantly, as the special advisor for the LA Kings, I think he did learn a good bit from his mistakes, which is something that is important to note. But still, I would prefer Darche. But really the question is, who is going to be the president over them? Because as we've been talking about all video, they have really been focusing that this is a GM interview, and which means the Islanders are looking to bring in a president. And the big name that has come to mind, especially after the Toronto Maple Leafs were eliminated from the playoffs, is Shanahan. Brendan Shanahan from the Toronto Maple Leafs, the president. He's been there for 9 years. His contract ends July 30th, or June 30th, I apologize for that. And it's believed that the Islanders are going to interview him for this president position. Now, there are a lot of interesting thoughts when it comes to this. Keep in mind, this tweet was from before Second Roster made his updated announcement that Darche and Bergevin had gotten second interviews while Kekalainen had not. But I think it's important to note when it comes with Shanahan that it's a really interesting decision. It's a really interesting situation, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. We really don't really have that many examples of teams bringing in a president and a general manager at the same time. Typically, you bring in the president, or what normally happens is you have a GM that you promote to president and then have them hire another GM. This would be really interesting to see how this works. Is Shanahan involved with these talks already, considering they are moving ahead and interviewing Darche and Bergevin for the role of general manager, or is this whole Shanahan thing going to take this search in a completely another direction as Shanahan looks to bring in his own guys, assuming he gets the role? I mean, he could interview and the Islanders could see that he is not a good fit for president. But based on what we've seen, especially with this ownership, and also including the fact that Shanahan has a really good experience with Collins, the main man making the decision when it comes to this Islanders decision, I would bet money that Shanahan is coming to the Islanders, and this can definitely throw a wrench into all we've talked about when it comes to this GM search. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you concerned about this idea of bringing in a Shanahan and one of Darche and Bergevin in the same time? It seems like it's unprecedented waters, and that's why I'm a little concerned. But still, I do think it can work really well. I mean, Shanahan, while he is not the most popular name, especially on the Islanders, who Islander fans absolutely hate the Leafs, but let's face it, the rebuild the Leafs had, even though it didn't work in terms of getting deep into the playoffs, was still incredible, and how they were able to put that core four together and really create exciting hockey in a team that was previously really tough to watch. So there's a positive there, and if he's working with somebody like Darche, who can have some new ideas and also really be an inventive new GM, it could work out really well. So I'd love to know your thoughts about that in the comments. As always, if you haven't, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. This is Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.